Talking about one particular album and band. It's going to basically be an album review of this recent record I got, and it's The Plastic Cloud.
Civilization machine, finest you've ever seen. I'll let you keep it clean if you've got the time. Civilization machine, finest you've ever seen. I'll let you keep it clean now if you've got the time.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Psychedelic here. Got a big one for you today. The Acid Archive Diaries number 20. Made it to the top 20. And I totally last minute forgot about this, but I thought to myself, did someone actually do this one? Because I couldn't remember. And way back early on, Vinyl Richie made an entry for this one. Sort of like a mini entry because he compiled like 4 or 5 different records into one video. But if you guys know Vinyl Richie, you know, his description of everything is, it's fantastic. So I thought we'd expand a little more on that, maybe. I'm just giving you shit, man. I had this in my mind to do it for the longest time. Had it on a notepad. I thought, let's do a psychedelic monster, as what they call garage psych monsters out there, and kind of show off the big ones, the big guns. And this is one that I happen to own. And today we're talking about The Plastic Cloud. This originally came out on Allied Records, number 10 in the catalog. It's an original copy here. Very thankful to own this. Got very lucky when I did because, you know, this was a Discogs purchase. I doubt this would have lasted much longer. I think I got this one pretty early. Just happened to refresh the marketplace, you know, what was for sale or something, or maybe I looked it up one time, the original listing. Just so happened that a copy in the US was selling under $1,000, and I had plenty of funds at the time. It was just perfect timing because I was kind of blanking on what original copies I could pick up. And yeah, I mean, I can't believe I still own this. This is just a monster rarity, as we all know. So this came out in 1968. I used to have the Lion Productions reissue that came out in 2014. I bought that when it came out, and I made an early video. I don't know if I can insert some clips or if I hid that video. I don't know if it's private or not, but I made a video doing an album review of this early on, and that was the reissue I had. Since then I parted with it, I sold it. Still kept the liner notes, which is kind of nice, because I think this originally did come with the lyric sheet and the whole like little folklore there within the paragraphs talking about, you know, finding this land of throgdom, whatever that means. I haven't read it in a long time, but it's kind of silly stuff there. But yeah, so let's get started. So The Plastic Cloud, I mean, for me this was an early one in the game, getting into garage and psych. I was kind of more of a garage rocker at the time. Obviously I love psych records, but I didn't go full bloom into it right away, unlike a lot of, like, you know, early garage rock and some of the heavier psych records. And this one was a little more different than those for me. And it was definitely a grower early on, but I read the hype online. Sometimes the hype's a little warranted in some spots, but I believed it, man. I fell into the cult, and I thought to myself, let's give this a shot. And it took a few rotations to finally latch on to me. This one may take a few listens to kind of gradually pick up on, but to this day, this is one of those rare occasions where I know this record so well, it almost comes off as like a comfort listen. I could listen to this anytime, anywhere, and still love it. I could be in any type of mood and just kind of go throughout the whole track list. The whole thing works for me, except maybe one song, but we'll get to it. And so maybe let's kind of run through the track list here. You know, Epistle to Paradise. It's a great sort of harmonic, sort of folky opener. Great harmonics going on. And you can really hear the, I don't know if it's like a spring reverb or what, but it's like a very metallic sort of reverb sound, which is kind of interesting. It's almost bleeding into the mix almost too much. Like you can actually tell the space of where they recorded this at. And but it's interesting though. It's kind of beatly. Some of the vocals, at least I pick that more and more as I listen to this. I pick up on these sort of Lennon, Harrison kind of vocals, maybe something they would do. And then of course we bring the fuzz into the second track, Shadows of Your Mind, which was the single off of here. I think it was the A-side, right? And then Dainty General Rides was the B-side. Pretty sure. But yeah, Shadows of Your Mind, that's got some of the craziest lyrics, man. Talking about a paper Santa Claus and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Really bizarre lyrics that kind of mesh together, but yet they sound very adult. They sound very mature for these guys' age. I mean, they couldn't have been older than 20 years old, and they got some pretty strong lyricism going on. And then track number 3, Art's a Happy Man. Some people might consider maybe a filler track. They're actually talking about their photographer that took these photographs here. I think they just had a day shoot, you know, and they got some photos on here as well. Wearing the same outfits, going to these different parks and gardens, packing up his snapshots, home by 5. So just kind of a quirky track. Very simple, sort of melodic piece. But I'd say the 2 best tracks, perhaps, arguably, on this one are the last 2 tracks on both sides. You Don't Care, which is a 10-minute piece on this, concluding the first side. And it's got a very repetitive verse going throughout. You don't care about the morning. You don't care if the sun will rain, if for sun or rain. You know, goes over and over on top of these sort of drony, hypnotic fuzz leads in between. And I really love it, man. But then we get to Bridge Under the Sky. Again, kind of going back to the more mellow sounds. Very harmonic. It's got these very atmospheric rhythm sections. Got this jangly 12-string rhythm guitar, which was also done by the lead vocalist. And definitely one of the better tracks, I think. Face Behind the Sun. I like the track, but it might be my least favorite on here. The mixing job's not that great. The fuzz is really pushed on that left channel, while you got like all the vocals on the right channel. Although the mix is decent, it's spread out pretty decent, I feel like the fuzz is just pushed way too high in the mix. And some of the vocals are kind of drained out with all these, you know, reverb effects moving throughout. But otherwise, you know, as a track on its own for what they were going for, I still think it works pretty well. And then we got Dainty General Rides. Again, kind of a slower track, you know, a little bit of a marching shuffle to it. Sort of like an anti-war song. It was also kind of a good second closer leading up to Civilization Machine, which might be my favorite pick off of here. I don't know, man. They're all great tracks for me. But yeah, it's a 9-minute closing track. And again, it kind of goes back to those repetitive verses. You know, Civilization Machine, Finest You've Ever Seen. Maybe the most garagey on here too. In the fuzz, they got that throttled way up, man. Very scuzzy, very dirty fuzz guitar sound. And I think it's one of the strongest tracks for sure. Concludes with an atomic bomb sound effect. And then there's like a little organ piece at the very end. And that's really all you get for sound effects on this. You know, typically with these psych records, you're always kind of looking forward to those, you know, studio tricks, sound collage effects, you know, what have you. I think someone compared this to like United States of America online. That couldn't be further from a comparison. It sounds nothing alike. But this has like really no sound effects. It's kind of straightforward. I think the only overdub they ever did was like maybe the fuzz leads on here, or the fuzz solos. Because I feel like they did the backing tracks first with the 12-string, and then maybe added the fuzz over top. At least it feels that way. But only 8 tracks, but I'll tell you what, man, I think the consistency too is very good. They kind of match these tracks out pretty well, I'd say. So, yeah, pretty iconic, man. I think it is. So, I think Dom himself, Seeking a Thread, he said that, I remember he left a comment saying something like, you know, he's not over the moon about it like other people might be. And, you know, this one does get a lot of praise. I know that for sure. And I definitely fall into that camp, man. I definitely support this record quite highly. Even though, like I said, it might be a grower early on. But once you kind of seep into what they're talking about lyrically and just how strong the lyrics are, and I'm not even a lyric guy, and I noticed that. But, you know, switching from mellower sort of 12-string folkier cuts and then switching towards like a more aesthetic, yet kind of coming from the garage perspective type of rock sounds, I think it works pretty well. And some people kind of compare it to like a West Coast sound. I think they were listening to like stuff like the Byrds and, you know, some popular acts like that, but they don't sound like the Byrds necessarily. It's very much their own thing, very Canadian, in my opinion. And of course, Allied Records, they produced other famous ones like Rain Ghost, the Folk Lords. I have reissues of those, but this is a big one crossed off the original list, man. Never in a million years expected to get this, and very, very glad I do. So that's a little bit there. And so, yeah, the lead guitarist, what's his name? Mike Cadu. He'd be this gentleman here. I'm pretty sure this is Don Brewer, the lead vocalist, and the bass player and the drummer. Pretty sure that's how it goes. And then, yeah, produced by Jack Boswell and Bill Bessie, who also did the Folk Lords at least. I know they did that one. Words and music by Don Brewer, and not the Don Brewer of Grand Funk. And let's see, we got the lyric sheet. A few notes here from Lion Productions, some credits. And I see they have a Facebook page, and I actually found a couple of rare photos of them perhaps in the studio doing the harmonies. I'll have to share it if I happen to find those photos. And then there's like a promo shot of them too, which I also found, had never seen before. I think I found that through the Facebook group, or else Don's personal Facebook page, which I came across one time. And then we got some news notes here, talking about each member. I guess they're in their 20s. Oldest being probably 22. Yeah. Talk about the songs a little bit here too, individually. I think I'll read a little bit of this here, what they say in the news notes. The concept of a plastic cloud may seem somewhat paradoxical to scholars, but to the younger generation, it is a way of life. Plastic, a production in itself, is a confining, all too real fragment of life. A cloud, as always, is the wall of imagination upon which many aspirants have hung their fondest wishes. Reality for the PhD world is a hang-up. Locked inside a scientific world where imagination only has a price tag, they miss the creativity of a world where a flame can be anything. Because of this, 4 of Canada's finest young musicians have surrounded themselves with the cloak of a cloudy imagination to form the plastic cloud. So, let you guys read that if you can. Sorry if it's not coming in. I'll get a shot of the original vinyl here. So I think this was marked down because of a few rotational clicks, and it's on my least favorite track, which is good. Face Behind the Sun. And it's got like 15 seconds of clicking going on, but I can handle that. It's not too bad. There's a few scuffs, a few marks, but overall, plays pretty well. I can't really compare it to the reissue. I'd say the reissue sounds really good on Lion. And I've also heard the Void reissue sounds good, but I think I took a glimpse at the review in the Acid Archives and it said otherwise, that the Void doesn't sound very good. And I've had Void reissues that do sound pretty muddy. Otherwise, yeah, I really do recommend picking up the Lion reissue if you can find it out there. I think they're going maybe At most, 30, 40 bucks. You could probably pick it a little less than that. And I think they've repressed it a few times since the 2014 one. But as far as these originals go, last I checked, I mean, I've always known this to be a $1,000 record and up since then. But I think this might be in the top 5 for most I paid. But it wasn't all out of pocket. Like I said, I had some funds at the time, so can't believe it. So let's dive into our book here. I got the page saved, found my free jazz sticker. I'm happy again. Let's see what we got here. So yeah, they got a little billboard clip too, November of '68. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's pretty small print. But let's see here. Allied 10 gets the 4 rarity. They're from Bay Ridge, Canada, which I think is pretty close to Toronto. The Canadian late 1960s freak scene produced several terrific LPs, and here's one of the ultimates with an appeal to both garage fuzzheads and psych album collectors. The mix of dreamy West Coast pop art experimental band style vocals with ripping fuzz and sub-Dylan-esque lyrics works better than one might imagine possible, and the LP gains appeal from its youthful basement edge. This is one of the big mandatory pieces of the field and a desirable item for decades, which has helped make it rare despite a sizable pressing run. Great sleeve too. Unfortunately, this classic album has been poorly served by the recyclers, much like the box. Of the older reissues, the BSF boot is generally considered to have the best sound. The Laser's Edge CD is noisy while the Void LP lacks punch. The more recent Pacemaker Lion Job has been reported to sound good. A close counterfeit is rumored to exist. Originals show record number 10A in the dead wax on side 1, crossed out with 4 lines. Next to this, it is etched record number 10S1. Some originals came with additional promo inserts. That was by Patrick Lomborg. So there we have it. Yeah, and this, considering how dated this is a little bit, the Lion is recommended out of the other ones here. I think we got CD on a Karma, a Void reissue, Laser's Edge. Once again, I do understand if people think this is kind of overhyped, but to me this is kind of cream of the crop when it comes to discovering some Canadian garage interpreted psych sounds. This is about the best way I can come off with this one. Don't expect some crispy clear sound quality. It's definitely coming from a more unhinged direction, but some of the mellower tracks you guys might enjoy too if that fuzz doesn't really suit with you. And I should say also, Mike's guitar playing, he definitely has his limits. He's maybe not the most skilled guitar slayer by any means, but you got to think of the time period too. I mean, this is all very fresh. Distorted leads like this don't happen every day. And yeah, and I guess there's a story behind this little toy spider that they carry with them. It's like sort of some inside joke that none of us will ever get. Anyways, the Plastic Cloud, highly recommended. And that does it for number 20. So I do have a few more US kind of typical psych records people talk about. Nothing too crazy just yet. I think I do have like a Christian related record that doesn't get much discussion. Might be the next one, we'll see. But until then, thanks for joining me. Stay cool out there. It's very hot today. Very hot. So everybody stay cool out there, and we shall see you soon.